We are nerds.
Most of the people in the industry were young because the guys who had any real experience were too smart to get involved in all these crazy little machines.
It really wasn't that we were going to build billion-dollar businesses. We were having a good time.
Years ago, it was just that, an invention. It wasn't a business. These were hobbyists who built these machines and wrote this software to have fun. But that has really changed. And now this is a business. This is a big business.
Power Center!
And it wasn't just those early funky companies of nerds and hackers like Apple that made it happen. Most of this transformation from hobby to big business can be linked to 3 letters: IBM. IBM was and is an American business phenomenon. Over 60 years, Tom Watson and his son, Tom Jr., built what their workers called Big Blue into the top computer company in the world. But IBM made mainframe computers for large companies, not personal computers, at least not yet. For the PC to be taken seriously by big business, the nerds of Silicon Valley had to meet the suits of corporate America. IBM never fired anyone, requiring only undying loyalty to the company and a strict dress code. IBM hired conservative hard workers straight from school. They worked 9 to 5 and on Saturdays washed the car.
This is Intergalactic HQ for IBM, the largest computer company in the world. But in many ways, IBM is really more a country than it is a company. It has hundreds of thousands of citizens, it has a bureaucracy, it has an entire culture. Everything, in fact, but an army. Okay, Sam, we're ready to visit IBM country. Obviously, we're dressed for the part. Now, when you were in sales training in 1959 for IBM, did you sing company songs?
Absolutely.
Well, just to get us in the mood, let's sing one right here.
You're kidding.
Have the IBM, the songs of the IBM, and we're going to try for number 74, Our IBM Salesman, sung to the tune of Jingle Bells.
IBM, happy men, smiling all the way. Oh, what fun it is to sell our products night and day. IBM, Watson men, partners of TJ. In his service to mankind, that's why we are so gay.
Make a bad decision, or any decision at all.
At which we announced the new organizational structure.
Rich Seidner, computer programmer and wannabe Paul Simon, spent 25 years marching in step at IBM. He feels better now.
I mean, it's like getting 400,000 people to agree what they want to have for lunch. You know, I mean, it's just not going to, it's going to be lowest common, than, you know, it's going to be, you know, hot dogs and beans. So, so what are you going to do? So IBM had created this process, and it absolutely made sure that quality would be preserved throughout the process, that you actually were doing what you set out to do and what you thought the customer wanted. At one point, somebody kind of looked at the process to see, well, you know, what's it doing and what's the overhead built into it. And what they found is that it would take at least 9 months to ship an empty box.
By the late 70s, explosive growth of person IBM had begun to notice the computer companies like Apple.
The Apple II, small, inexpensive, simple to use. The first computer...
What's more, it was a computer business they didn't control. In 1980, IBM decided they wanted a piece of this action.
There were suddenly tens of thousands of people buying machines of that class, and they loved them, and they were very happy with them, and they were showing up in the engineering departments of our clients as machines that were brought in because you can't do the job on your mainframe kind of thing.
JB wanted to know why I'm doing better than all the other managers. It's no secret. I have an Apple. Sure, there's a big computer 3 flights down, but it won't test my options, do my charts, or edit my reports like my Apple.
People who'd gotten it were religious fanatics about them. So the concern was we were losing the hearts and minds. And give me a machine to win back the hearts and minds.
Hey, Bill, nice to see you again. Yeah, I tried to match the IBM dress code. How did I do?
That's terrific. That's terrific. I'm sorry.
He knew the company was in a quandary. Wait another year and the PC industry would be too big even for IBM to take on. Chairman Frank Carey turned to the department heads and said, "Help!"
He kind of said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, we think we know what we would like to do if we were going to proceed with our own product. And he said, no. He said, at IBM it would take 4 years and 300 people to do anything. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And I said, no, sir, we can provide you a product in a year. And he abruptly ended the meeting. He said, you're on, Logue. Come back in 2 weeks and tell me what you need.
An IBM product in a year? Ridiculous. Down in the basement, Bill still has the plan. To save time, instead of building a computer from scratch, they would buy components off the shelf and assemble them. What in IBM speak was called open architecture. IBM never did this. 2 weeks later, Bill proposed his heresy to the chairman.
And frankly, this is it. Now, the key decisions were to go with an open architecture. Non-IBM technology, non-IBM software, non-IBM sales, and non-IBM service. And we probably spent a full half of the presentation carrying the corporate management committee into this concept, because this was a new concept for IBM at that point in time.
Was it a hard sell?
Mr. Carey bought it, and as a result of him buying it, we got through it.
With the backing of...
Once IBM had decided to do a personal computer, and to do it in a year, they couldn't really design anything. They just had to slap it together. So that's what we'll do. You have a central processing unit, and let's see. You need a monitor or display and a keyboard. Okay, a PC, except it's not. There's something missing. Time for the Cringely Crash Course in Elementary Computing. A PC is a box full of electronic switches, a piece of hardware. It's useless until you tell it what to do. It requires a program of instructions. That's software. Every PC requires at least 2 essential bits of software in order to work at all. First, it requires a computer language. That's what you type in to give instructions to the computer, to tell it what to do. Remember, it was a computer language called BASIC that Paul Allen and Bill Gates adapted to the Altair, the first PC. The other bit of software that's required is called an operating system. That's the internal traffic cop that tells the computer itself how the keyboard is connected to the screen or how to store files on a floppy disk instead of just losing them when you turn off the PC at the end of the day. Operating systems tend to have boring, unfriendly names like Unix and CP/M and MS-DOS, but though they may be boring, it's an operating system that made Bill Gates the richest man in the world. And the story of how that came about is, well, pretty interesting.
So the contest begins. Who would IBM buy their software from? Let's meet the 2 contenders. The late Gary Kildall, then age 39, a computer science PhD, and a 24-year-old Harvard dropout, Bill Gates. By the time IBM came calling in 1980, Bill Gates and his small company, Microsoft, was the biggest supplier of computer languages in the fledgling PC industry.
Many different computer manufacturers are making the CP/M operating system standard on most models.
For their operating system, though, the logical guy for the IBMers to see was Gary Kildall. He ran a company modestly called Intergalactic Digital Research. Gary had invented the PC's first operating system, called CP/M. He'd already sold 600,000 of them, so he was the big cheese of operating systems.
In the early 70s, I had a need for an operating system myself, and it just was a very natural thing to write, and it turns out other people had a need for an operating system like that. And so it was a very natural thing. I wrote it for my own use, and then started selling it.
In Gary's mind, it was the dominant thing, and it would always be the dominant, because, you know, Bill did languages and Gary did operating systems. And he really honestly believed that would never change.
But what would change the balance of power in this young industry was the characters of the 2 protagonists.
So I knew Gary back when he was an assistant professor at Monterey Post Grad School, and I was simply a grad student. And went down, sat in his hot tub, smoked dope with him, and thoroughly enjoyed it all, and commiserated and talked nerd stuff. He liked playing with gadgets, just like Woz did and does, just like I did and do.
He wasn't really interested in how you drive the business. He worked on projects, things that interest him.
He didn't go rushing off to the patent office and patent CP/M and patent every line of code he could. He didn't try to just squeeze the last dollar out of it.
Gary was not a fighter. Gary avoided conflict. Gary hated conflict. Bill, I don't think anyone could say backed away from conflict.
Nobody said future billionaires have to be nice guys. Here at the Microsoft Museum is a shrine to Bill's legacy.